is the mastermind of everything. Hello, I'm Aaron Pringle, and welcome to my channel, where pop culture and cocktails collide in an unholy union. Today we're exploring the delightful 2019 hit murder mystery film Knives Out. As always, we'll be looking at the drinks of the characters to find out what clues we can uncover. First, I'll be doing a fairly straightforward analysis, as the filmmakers want me to. But then, I'm blowing this whole thing wide open when I show how an alcoholic beverage shows how we've all been wrong about who's been responsible for the death of Harlan Thromby. Obviously, all the spoilers. Here, on a murdery edition of... Knives Out follows a twisted tale of greed and murder that goes as follows. A spoiled brat tries to kill his grandpa for the inheritance money and frame a minority for the crime. Or at least, that's what we're led to believe. The drinks of Knives Out. All the drinking in this film takes place during two major events. The first is a birthday party celebrated by the Thrombey family, a joyous celebration tainted by the mysterious death of family patriarch Harlan Thromby, and a much shorter diner scene later in the movie with Ransom, the murderous grandchild played by Chris Evans, and Marta, the innocent help framed in the crime. Both are symbolic of the Thromby family's relationship with Marta. Our first impression of this party and the Thrombeys is the mess they leave behind. Gilded champagne flutes and fine plates are strewn about like an especially delicate frat party. The dishes are left lying wherever the Thrombeys had finished using them. Champagne is always movie shorthand for wealth, and the careless mess left in their own home lets us know that they are also entitled. We see the night of the party through the eyes of various Thrombeys as they give their side of the story to Detective Benoit Blanc.
I needed an entire picture of the evening in my head, and
their stories differ a little, but they all have one thing in common. The family got shithoused that night. No matter who is telling the story or what time of the evening we are shown, everyone constantly has a drink in their hands. Whether it be martini, champagne, or whiskey, this classy family wallowed in drunken luxury. Marta, on the other hand, is conspicuously not drinking, and even turns down a glass of champagne because she's technically working.
You want some champers?
I can't, I'm technically working.
This further underlines the deep separations between the Thrombeys and Marta. They are guests at a party, and she is a servant, even though she was invited. They are vice-riddled weirdos, and she's a sober saint. Ransom's scene even goes a step further and has him building a literal wall between him and Marta with his craft beer bottles. Ransom's beer drinking is interesting to note because we know he likes to think of himself as special. He separates himself from the rest of his family by drinking something that is traditionally considered lower class. Of course, we know he drinks beer in the most snobbish way possible, as evidenced by all the growlers in his house. He even later uses one of those growlers to torch a lab to destroy evidence, which I don't know if that's a common beer snob thing or not. Beer snobs, do you use your growlers for arson? Anyway, the drinks of the movie seem to line up neatly with the way that everything turns out. The Thrombeys are entitled drunken snobs, and they treat Marta like absolute shit. So I have a couple problems with that. The problem with Marta. So the overall theme is that the rich white people are freeloaders on their own system of private welfare. And Harlan giving that wealth to an honest immigrant that worked hard is a sort of karmic justice, and maybe a metaphor for redistributing the wealth to the workers. This is still problematic, however, because it's still very much a white man's tale, and the message does get a bit muddled, despite what I'm sure were the best intentions. The film treats Marta in a similar way that the Thrombeys do. Sure, part of that is intentional, like the running gags where the Thrombeys all say she's from a different South American country, despite most of the evidence suggesting that her family is from Cuba, or that they all claim that they wanted to invite her to Harlan's funeral, but they had been outvoted. But it starts to get murky with things like Marta's mother is never given a name, and is only ever used as a plot device to create tension for Marta. Is the film trying to make the point that immigrants are often removed of personhood and just thought of as props and blackmail material? Or did they just not bother to flesh out that character? Then there's Marta herself. So while I do find it refreshing that there weren't any romantic subplots in the film, although I'm sure there are plenty of Marta and Detective Blanc shippers out there, the movie never really goes there. But then they take that a little too far and kind of just remove all sexuality from her whatsoever. She wears very drapey clothes, has a plain style of makeup and hairdo, generally holds herself in a defensive, closed-in position, and honestly it looks like they just kind of dressed her like a 12-year-old boy. Add that to the fact that she literally physically cannot tell a lie, and she's a paradigm of virtue, and that's boring. By completely removing any sort of vice, Marta is no longer a real person so much as the ideal saint version of a person. And while Ana de Armas exudes so much charisma that she gives life to the character and makes Marta compelling, on page she's just a boring goody two-shoes. This just isn't humanizing Marta in a realistic way. And talk about white people's fears of immigrants. From a certain point of view, the plot of this movie is Marta, the daughter of an illegal immigrant, destroys a white family and steals their house. We, the audience, know this is a good thing because Marta is just so good, but at the end of the day, it's still weird to have your film's moral be that if you're just a kind enough person, maybe some weird old rich white dude will die someday and give you all of his money. During the drinking party, the insufferable family calls Marta in and uses her as a prop in their debate, without acknowledging her experiences as a real human. The audience and the film both know this is wrong, and further highlight the differences in class and privilege. We're supposed to laugh at the Thrombeys because we know better. But by giving Marta all virtue and no vice, the film is, in a sense, doing the same thing. She's being used as a prop to make us feel good about our own beliefs. I mean, there's also a minority catering staff that is present throughout the entire party, and they're delegated to mostly ignored non-speaking roles. I mean, I've worked in catering, and that's pretty true to life, but still. Also, look at Ana de Armas's own story. She started from humble beginnings, worked her ass off to create an internationally successful acting career, all through talent and ambition. And while I'm sure she's a very lovely person in real life, I don't know, I haven't met her. I'm sure she didn't get to where she was by being the living embodiment of some sinless, saintly Puritan. I mean, again, I don't know. Maybe. But some of her earlier roles were pretty racy indeed. And that just means she's a human person capable of making her own decisions with what she's comfortable with doing in the service of her craft. And adhering to some puritanical version of morality shouldn't be required for a person of lower financial status to be considered worthy of success. Nor is it really possible for the vast majority of humanity. I mean, have you met people? And again, this isn't to bash the film, it's still extremely well done. The cast is firing on all cylinders, and it's one of the most enjoyable films to watch I've come across in a while. But, you know, there's always room for improvement. And it's these reasons that having diversity behind the scenes, as well as in front of the camera, is so important, you know? We don't want to condemn demonizing Latin Americans just to overcorrect into fetishizing them. However, this analysis is only 100% sound if you take the movie at face value, which the movie itself tells you, don't take things at face value, because there's a major problem, and it involves a drink that was never shown on screen. And now, as promised, the full story of Knives Out. Marta and the Case of the Champagne Sham. So earlier I said Marta is so free of vice that not only is she never shown having a drink, but she is shown explicitly refusing a glass of champagne.
You want some champers? I can't, I'm technically working.
However, you'll notice on the night of the murder that Marta says,
Oh, no.
Get up
I had
here.
a glass of champagne. Pardon.
You've only had one glass.
Exactly,
We
a
are
glass of
not
champagne.
breaking.
A glass of champagne.
I can't, I'm technically working.
A glass of champagne.
I can't, I'm technically working.
Glass of champagne. I can't, I'm technically working.
Glass of champagne.
Glass of champagne.
And sure, Marta easily could have had that glass of champagne off camera, and I originally wrote it off that way, but then why are we shown her explicitly turning down a glass of champagne? Now again, maybe Marta refused that glass and had a different one later, but it seems like such an odd thing to include, which can only mean one thing. Marta lied. Marta lies about having the champagne and doesn't throw up. Seeing as how her whole thing is not being able to lie, this throws her entire character into question. And that brings us to the real problem with Marta. Marta is the mastermind of everything.
Why can't I beat you at this game?
Because I'm not playing to beat you. I'm playing to build a beautiful pattern. I'm playing to build a beautiful pattern.
All she needs to do is act all innocent and keep making her pattern as pretty as possible, and her opponents will defeat themselves by trying to outplay her. Once you realize her game, there's so much evidence that she's behind everything. We have the theme of foresight in the film. Harlan is made out as some sort of savant for how things will play out. His writing method is described as the plots come fully formed into his mind. There's even crystal balls like on his desk, and yet Marta can always beat him at his favorite game strategy. How the family would act just takes Marta's word that she always throws up when she lies. No one ever asks her family. Blanc thinks he tricked Marta into lying. Accidentally switches the medications back to how they were supposed to and knew someone was trying to frame her. As however that Marta has known about this plan for some time. He seemingly had little problem with his family situation before Marta started. Suddenly he decides he's raised his family wrong for the past 50 years, nurse, and then dies under a decidedly bizarre manner. Overwhelmingly and preposterously honest and kind-hearted. Her name, Marta Cabrera, literally means master goat herd. Okay, that kind of went off the rails at some point, but to say the least, I'm convinced the major unresolved twist in the story is that Marta masterminded the whole damn thing. And far too often, these major kinds of plot twists rely on the mastermind basically having mind-reading powers. Here though, all Marta really had to do was bank on the fact that the Thrombeys would all act like a bunch of overdramatic weirdos whose lives revolve around convoluted murder plots. It wouldn't take a supernatural gift of foresight to know that cutting off this greedy family from Harlan's money would create enough motive for one of them to kill him. Then Marta just had to make sure that Blanc got the right clues at the right time and keep up her act of pure innocent virtue. When the detectives solve the mystery about ransom, they can congratulate themselves for a game well played, without realizing that Marta had designed the board they were playing on. She just maintains her pattern of innocence, and the vast fortune is hers.
I'm not playing to beat you. I'm playing to build a beautiful pattern.
If Marta was manipulating Dad somehow,
if somehow she had gotten her hooks into him.
You need a strong case for that. She endeared herself to him through hard work and good humor. That ain't cut the salami.
You won, not by playing the game Harlan's way, but yours.
So, what does this mean for my earlier analysis? Well, it's better in some ways. It is intriguing that Marta could use her invisible status as a poor minority to outplay the wealthy old white family. It gives Marta more agency and makes her a far more interesting character than the one we're led to believe is the true Marta. It's less good in that it seems to affirm that sneaky minorities will come in and trick your dad into giving away his house and fortune. Go. But we can give them the benefit of the doubt and say, given the fact that Knives Out exists in a universe where murder mystery tropes and shocking twists rule the day, Marta is simply beating these people at their own game. And that's empowering, I suppose. So in conclusion, the film as it stands and how most people interpret it doesn't deal with Marta in a totally awesome way. In the way I've interpreted the film, which is the correct way, it's still not 100% great as an allegory, but it is better for Marta the character. Looking at the cast list for Knives Out 2, it looks like we're done with Marta and the Thrombeys for now. So we may never know the full extent of Marta's character. I do know what I'll be looking for in the sequel though, because I think it would be hilarious if the point of the entire Knives Out film series is that Benoit Blanc is actually just a terrible detective, and even though he seems to solve the mystery every time, he's always just like way off and all of the real masterminds are getting away. Or maybe Marta will come back and do a full heel turn and go from Detective Blanc's Watson to his Moriarty. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Cinemixology. I'm Aaron Pringle, reminding you to always drink responsibly, which apparently for me means drinking alone in my bedroom, recording it for all the world to see. If you want to see more, be sure to like and subscribe. Become a Patreon using the link in the description box, or leave a Venmo tip at the Aaron Pringle. Okay, bye now. I'm fine. Bye.
Glass of champagne. Glass of champagne.